I just wanted to give my thoughts real quick on Vyacheslav Shabranskyy versus Sullivan Barrera. Showed up on HBO Latino, as well as I'll give my point of view on the undercard fights as well that were on the HBOL portion of the card. Sullivan Barrera came in and he came out like a firecracker against Vyacheslav Shabranskyy. Man, he was throwing the jab, throwing heavy jabs, really stepping into the jab every time he threw it, putting a lot of authority on it. Almost kind of reminded me of Jermaine Taylor a few years back, where that was really Taylor's best punch was the jab. Everything was set up off of it, and Barrera was looking very similar to that with how he came out and like right from the opening bell, putting that jab right on Barrera, stuffing it in his face, and giving him something seriously to think about. Barrera dropped Shabranskyy in the first round. Shabranskyy was able to recover, was able to survive the round, came out, wound up dropping Barrera in the second round. It had a huge round, huge comeback round for Shabranskyy. Barrera was looking out of it for a minute, but Barrera managed to survive that second round. And then in the third and the fourth round, Barrera was able to make the necessary adjustments and just stick behind that jab, especially instead of trying to trade power shots with Shabranskyy. And once he stuck behind that jab and stopped being quite as reckless, it was just a matter of time as he just kind of slowly broke Shabranskyy down, dropped him again in the fifth round, and dropped him finally in the seventh, where the corner actually came in and stopped the fight. Shabransky's corner threw the white towel in, waved it off for the ref to wave it off, and it was just a fantastic fight between the two of them. Especially like the first two rounds, looking at it, it was looking like it was going to be another fight of the year candidate late in the year. But it turned out that it wound up being kind of a breakout performance for Sullivan Barrera. Of course, Sullivan Barrera had been looking pretty solid before the Andre Ward fight. That was a massive step up for him when he fought Andre Ward. He managed to knock out Karo Murat. Of course, he had knocked out, what was left of Jeff Lacey in 2015. The Ward fight was a big step up, and he actually did pretty fair, for a guy that was a bit of a novice in terms of professional fights, a guy that's really kind of still getting his bearings under him as a professional, as opposed to, fighting as an amateur. He actually looked pretty good in the Ward fight. Gave him some difficulties to deal with. Just was a little bit of a step behind the whole way through. And that's what let him down in that. But here, he started fast, and he finished conclusively. I guess you might say he finished fast. He knocked him out in the seventh round out of 10 rounds. So he definitely got the job done before it went to decision. But it was pretty much a matter of time. Barrera was dominating the fight throughout the entirety of the fight from the third round onwards. Tough loss for Shabranskyy. I mean, he was being talked up in a major way, especially after he had turned down an initial offer to fight Andre Ward, where Alexander Brand wound up fighting him instead. I guess they thought it was kind of a low offer for Shabranskyy in light of what Ward was going to be making, but turned out to not necessarily be the best move, because in here against Barrera, I'm sure he didn't get paid nearly as much, and he got handled. He just got manhandled in there, and beat down. He just wasn't quite able to get his grasp into the fight. Got caught cold early, and he got dragged into a type of fight that I don't think he expected. I think he expected this to be more of a boxing match as opposed to just a fight. A knockdown, drag out, firefight. And the thing is, Barrera, even in that type of a fight, showed a good amount of skill and class in doing so. A fantastic jab, especially. Everything came behind it, and he was just throwing the shoulder sharper shots in there against Shabranskyy, and he couldn't really deal with it with his wider shots. So just a fantastic win for Barrera. After the fight, he, of course, basically said that he'd like to get a rematch with Andre Ward. Of course, the Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev fight is supposedly going to be happening. Hopefully it happens. And I wouldn't mind seeing either of them against the winner. Otherwise, there's a few other top-level fighters that he might be able to face, maybe Arthur Beterbiev or a Dmitry Bivol. But, I mean, it's really hard to get much better than a guy that he just beat in Shabranskyy. Maybe he could fight against Alexander Vozdik. That'd be a fantastic fight, I think. As for Shabranskyy, it's going to be kind of drop back to the drawing board. Maybe take a step back with him, try and get his confidence back. I don't know how hard it was for him to make light heavyweight, but I know he's fought above the weight a number of times. He's fought at the cruiserweight division ostensibly a few times. So maybe move up might do him some good. He's a fairly tall guy, 6'3.5". So that might actually do a little bit of good for him. And then, of course, on the undercard, Rashidi Ellis coming in with an explosive upset, explosive first round knockout victory over Eddie Gomez. Of course, Eddie Gomez, his only recent loss was to Francisco Santana, Chia Santana, a guy that gave Saddam Ali all he could handle in a close loss, and a guy that he gave Jose Benavidez all he could handle in a close loss as well. So a guy that's, fairly proven amongst, at the very least, like the B-level caliber guys at welterweight, was the only guy that managed to defeat Eddie Gomez. And instead of getting the decision over Eddie Gomez, Rashidi Ellis came in and just blitzed him. Very fast guy. His nickname in there is Speedy. He definitely showed a hell of a lot of hand speed in there. The jab and the jab right hand. It's like he feinted a jab, but that kind of missed Eddie Gomez. The second jab kind of just barely maybe grazed him on the cheek. And that right hand that came behind that second jab just rocketed on Gomez's chin and dropped him hard. Gomez, I was surprised he even got up. And then after that, Rashidi Ellis just managed to tee off on him with a number of right hands consecutively, knocked him down again. Gomez looked completely out of it, almost went through the ropes. Ref called it, and it was all over and done with. Brilliant first round knockout for Rashidi Ellis. Breakout performance, and I think he's definitely going to be a guy to look at in the near future at welterweight. He might be a guy that we may see down the road against somebody like Errol Spence. A lot of people thinking like, whoa, who the hell is Rashidi Ellis? I've never seen him before. And that's the reason why you guys got to be watching these cards, man. These HBO Latino cards, these Golden Boy Friday night cards, these YouTube cards, these top ranked TV cards. A lot of hidden gems in these cards. And I think that we just stumbled upon one with Rashidi Ellis. Brilliant knockout performance for Ellis. And then, of course, to start out, the HBOL portion of the telecast was Ronnie Rios facing off against Roy Tapia. Of course, Ronnie Rios only had one loss, and so did Roy Tapia. Roy Tapia had only 15 fights, though, compared to Ronnie Rios's 28, or at least they have 15 and 28 now after this fight. And it was a pretty solid first couple of rounds. Tapia was giving Rios a lot to think about, especially in the first round. He came out trying to bully Rios, trying to see if maybe Rios could be broken, similar to the way that Robinson Castellanos managed to kind of break Rios down after an initial good start by Rios. But it wasn't meant to be. Rios has definitely improved since that Castellanos loss. Managed to bust up and beat down Jason Velez on the, I think it was the Cotto Canelo undercard. And he showed a lot of class here again against Roy Tapia. And it's looking like he's going to be campaigning at 122 pounds now instead, as opposed to featherweight. So I think Ronnie Rios is on the verge of being ready for a title shot. And should he happen to get one, I wouldn't be surprised if he was to win it. Very solid fighter. A guy that I think has most difficulty with pressure fighters, very strong pressure fighters. But at the same time, you have to be able to take his power, because he's a very, very hard hitter. Tapia was giving him some issues early on with the pressure, but the thing is he just wasn't able to take the level of power that Rios was providing him with. He was hitting him with a lot of clean right uppercuts, especially. A very, very underrated shot, and a shot that that Ronnie Rios is extremely good at doing. So he managed to get the retirement from Roy Tapia after 6 rounds. He didn't come out for round 7. And it was just a matter of time for Ronnie Rios to get the job done. So 3 fantastic performances, 3 knockout performances. Of course, the Sullivan Barrera with just a great upset over Vyacheslav Shabranskyy. Rashidi Ellis with the explosive upset over Eddie Gomez. And Ronnie Rios doing his thing as the favorite in order to take out and keep down the upset-minded Roy Tapia. Fantastic card. And if I'm able to find video, I have of the main event as well as the co-feature. I haven't yet seen if Rios is up. I think it might be, though. I'll link the full undercards in the description, the full card in the description, as well as the Golden Boy portion as well. The Golden Boy portion on YouTube was, I think, fantastic. Just a lot of good fights from some young up and comers. The only guy missing really was what was his name now? I'm completely blanking on the man's name that was supposed to be fighting. Antonio Orozco, that's right. Antonio Orozco wound up feigning at the weigh-in, or before the weigh-in yesterday. He wasn't able to make weight. Passed out, got taken to the hospital, and blew what could have been a potential title opportunity at 140 pounds. But, if he can't make the weight healthy, he can't make the weight healthy. So it's looking like he's probably going to be campaigning at 147 welterweight division in the near future. And, I think that's probably better for him in the long run. That's probably better for you to be fighting before you even touch the scale and not take any more punishment on top of that, rather than to make the weight unhealthily and go in there and then just take a bad beat down. That could have potentially been disastrous. So um, that's all I have for Orozco and for the rest of this card. Props to Barrera, props to Ellis, props to Rios. Fantastic victories. Great card. Props to Golden Boy. So that's all I got for this one. I'll catch you guys in the next. Peace.